Welcome to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast, where we are building a community of people who are in the midst of midlife, sharing our stories and learning from each other along the way. Each week, I'll have a guest join me to discuss a topic that impacts our lives and touches on some aspect of midlife. We'll discuss relationships, transitions, health and well-being, parenting, careers, and more. My goal is to encourage and support you and help you thrive as you navigate this adventure of midlife. Join me here each week for the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast. This week, I'm excited to have Stephanie Neighbor Kubik back on the podcast. Stephanie is the owner of Vella Yoga in Marion, a floral company, Ellabank Blossoms, and is a health coach. Stephanie was on Season 1, Episode 7 of the podcast to share general health tips for those of us in middle age. On this week's episode, Stephanie shares straightforward information and guidance to help us manage our nutrition well during midlife. We also discuss some tips for planning ahead for events while still being focused on making healthy choices and making memories with our loved ones. If you'd like to learn more about health coaching with Stephanie, she is offering a free 30-minute consultation for listeners of the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast. Message Stephanie on Instagram or Facebook and mention the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast to schedule your free consultation. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode with Stephanie Neighbor Kubik. Stephanie Neighbor Kubik, welcome back to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back.
Well, I'm glad you're back too. We met in Season 1. We've known each other a lot longer than that, obviously, but we recorded an episode for the first season of the podcast that I thought was just amazing. We've had so many people listen to it, and I don't have the number of listens right in front of me at the moment, but it was a lot. And you shared some excellent tips on just general great healthy practices in middle age, which is so important, whether you're a person who is just getting started with some of these practices or you've been doing these practices for a while, just as a great reminder of things we all can do to take care of ourselves in middle age. So thank you for that. It was
You're
a great
so
episode.
welcome.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and a great reminder for all of us that health is wealth and we need to take care of ourselves for sure. But before we get started, just as a reminder for the listeners, can you share a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a wife, I'm a mother, and I'm just a lifelong learner. Like I love learning and just continuing to add to my own database. But I own Vella Yoga, which is a yoga studio in Marion, and we offer yoga, Pilates, and strength training. And then we also own a flower business called Ellabank Blossoms that we work a lot here at Ashton Hill.
Yes.
And I'm a health coach.
Yeah.
So that's like the most recent to my resume. Yeah. So I love working with men and women on how I can help them with nutrition, lifestyle, exercise, all of the things, just as you said, to keep health as wealth.
Absolutely. We were talking before we got started recording. I always think sometimes I should just hit record and record us because we had such a great conversation about health and living in different stages of life. And I'm turning 50 this year. You're in your early 50s, just talking about that attitude and understanding that aging, really is a privilege, and taking care of ourselves is really important at any age, but certainly at the stage of life that we're in and what that means. And so I'm just so glad that you're here. I'm going to put in the show notes how people can connect with you, because I also shared with you that I feel like it's really important for people to, especially if you're just getting started in this, or maybe you've been away from, practicing, whether it's a good exercise routine or good health care habits. I think it's so important to have a resource like you to share not just your knowledge, but also be that accountability person to give guidance, encouragement, support, because it's not linear, right? It's an up and down journey. We have good days, bad days, and everything in between. And so having you to support someone, I really want to make sure that people get connected to you. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes to your contact information so that people can reach out to you for health coaching if that's something they want to learn more about.
Thank you.
I think that would be great. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to specifically talk about nutrition. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I think in my own personal health journey, it's where I've always kind of struggled the most with what to eat, when to eat it, how much to eat, what to track, what not to track. What happens if something unexpected comes up and I go off my plan? What do I do? And I know for a lot of people, nutrition is an area that can feel very overwhelming. Because, we have to eat. We can't not eat. So we have to eat. We're faced with tons of decisions around what to choose for our nutrition every day, what we're going to have or not have. And I think sometimes it can get a little overwhelming for people.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, and that's the thing. There are so many things out there, from keto to paleo to carnivore to intermittent fasting to, you fill it in, right? Mm-hmm. There's everything out there. And when I coach people, honestly, especially women over 40, the first thing I go to is protein forward. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of because as we age, we have got to have muscle. Mm-hmm. And whether that is from meat or mm-hmm. plant-based, mm-hmm. protein forward is always my first go-to. Now, I will say it's difficult getting enough protein from plants. I'll mm-hmm. just say that. Now, do I love plant-based, proteins? Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Lentils, chickpeas, black beans, all kinds of things.
Sure.
But you probably won't get as much as you need to that way. And I'm just going to say that, but right. you can figure that out for yourself.
Sure.
I will say, and this is a crazy statistic that I wrote down because I mm-hmm. wanted to make sure that everybody hears it and mm-hmm. truly listens, how essential protein is as we age, right. that 1/3 of people over the age of 50 could die within 12 months of suffering a hip fracture.
Wow.
1/3. And the reasons are because your quality of life completely changes. Mm-hmm. You could go into a home. You won't be able to do all of the things that you're used to doing, all of those things. And a scarier statistic is that older adults have a 5 to 8 times higher risk of dying within the first 3 months.
Wow.
So again, just super important to do the things that you need to do to gain muscle. And one mm-hmm. of those nutrition-wise, I will say, is absolutely focusing on protein.
Right.
After protein, obviously, I recommend carbs. There should never be a food group
Naughty word, carbs.
Take away. I know.
Carbs have gotten a bad rap over the years, I feel like.
Yes. And we have to have carbs in order to do the workouts that we need to do mm-hmm. to keep our muscle. So you have to have good carbs. You have to have good fats. All of those things just go into a well-balanced nutrition plan. So really what I'm saying is whole food nutrition. That's really, the perimeter of the grocery store, staying there. You don't really need to go into the middle.
The darn middle.
The darn middle, it gets you every time. So those are kind of nutritionally wise. And I have a couple of other just little things that I kind of abide by and that I coach people. Mm-hmm. And one is just purely for digestive reasons, mm-hmm. really to stop eating about 3 hours before you're going to go to bed. Mm-hmm. It really helps you sleep better. Your body needs that chance to rest and digest.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. I have been doing that for a long time, initially because I have reflux.
Oh, sure.
And so one of the things my medical provider told me to do was to stop eating at a certain time of night.
Yeah.
And I think it was about 2 to 3 hours before mm-hmm. bed. And prior to that, I'd snack, all the way till, my head hit the pillow sometimes, not every night, but there'd be a lot of nights when I'd be noshing late. Mm-hmm. And that certainly does not help if you have a condition like that.
Yeah.
But your point too, is that our body digestion, doesn't it just take a lot of energy stores of our body to digest food? And so if you're constantly, pushing it full of food, it can't ever take a break, and sleeping is that one chance that we have for it to take a break from all the digestion. So stopping earlier. Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great tip.
Yeah.
I do that, and it's definitely helped me in terms of my reflux, but also I feel like just in maintaining, healthy weight and hitting my goals that I have. So absolutely. I love that.
And it gives you, again, because I don't think intermittent fasting is a bad thing. And but when I say that, I'm not talking crazy fasts.
Sure.
Like I'm saying, okay, so if you're done at 7 o'clock, a little tip, go brush your teeth, because that will prevent you from eating anything else, And then, just wait until 7 o'clock in the morning. That's 12 hours. That's intermittent fasting.
Right.
And then if you wanted to take it 14 hours, okay, anything, especially with women, over 40, there's different schools of thoughts out there, but it can start to wreak a little havoc with your hormones if you get too crazy with the intermittent fasting. But if you just, do 12, maybe 14, and that's just so good for your digestion.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so overwhelming when if you were just to look at all the different plans out there or thoughts of schools of thought on nutrition. You could ask 20 people and you're going to get 20 different perspectives. So I think really breaking it down into some simple things that we can all look at: protein, good carbs, good fats, giving your body a break from digestion for a little while. I mean, those are really simple, straightforward things that we can do. You mentioned that it might be difficult to get all of your protein from plant-based protein sources. And so do you ever encourage a client to use, like in smoothies or a shake, like a protein powder or anything that could maybe help with that if they're not as into eating meat, based protein, animal-based protein?
Yes.
And tell me a little bit more about that, what you kind of counsel people with that, like for smoothies and shakes and stuff.
Especially because as you're just starting this journey, when we figure out your protein goals, it can seem overwhelming because women especially do not realize how much they're under eating protein. So just to give you a general, example of, say, 100 grams of protein a day, that can seem like, oh my gosh, I don't think, and that was me. Like, I was like, there's no way I could eat that. So absolutely, I think, and I still do, every morning after I work out, I have a protein smoothie with a scoop of whey protein. Whey isolate protein is the best. It's more bioavailable and digestive. So, but if you wanted to do, like if you have whey stuff, like if you can't digest whey very well, the whey isolate though is very easily digestive.
Okay.
But there are plant-based proteins out there. Again, they're not as bioavailable to your muscles, to your body as a whey, but it's certainly a way that you could, pardon the pun, that you could add it in.
Well, no, and I like that. I think having options is important too, because I agree. I think some folks, have a different tolerance for different types of things or prefer different types of things. So giving everybody some different choices to help them figure out what's going to work best for them is great.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is a great supplement.
Yeah. Cause I get to think about how many grams of protein. It's like, wow, that's a lot.
Right.
And, I can't even remember when I was really, really kind of tracking my macros, what mine was, but it seemed insurmountable. I was able to do it, but I had to kind of supplement with, protein, powder and things like that. So, we were kind of just to kind of segue into that, we talked about tracking macros, protein, good carbs, good fats, things like that. When you're meeting with a client and you're coaching them, you talked about protein and things like that. Are there any other macros or anything that you would have them look at? Or is it just mostly about looking at their goals and what they want to do, and then kind of tailoring that to them and what they want? You kind of try to tailor it to each person, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. So we do look, are you looking to gain muscle? Are you looking at maintenance, or are you wanting to lose weight? And whatever that goal is how we would determine your, and I do have them track macros, protein, carbs, and fat and fiber, because fiber is really important.
Yes, it is.
So it really just depends on what their goal is. And then I always start with protein first. And just a general, easy kind of calculation for anybody listening is taking your goal weight, if whatever it is, like if you're maintaining right now and this is your weight, and then you just, it's 1 pound, 1 pound per gram of, 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Okay.
So if your goal weight is 135 pounds, your protein goal should be 135.
Okay. Can't get much simpler than that,
Yeah.
right? I love that. That's great. Because I think one thing I definitely want to get across, we kind of talked about this too, is that what works for one person may not, always work for someone else because they have different goals.
Right.
They have different things they want to accomplish. So I think that's super important. And why working with someone, like you is so helpful, because I think a lot of us, in middle age, we try to do the same things we did in our 20s and our 30s even. And that just doesn't work for us as we age. We're, especially if you're, in perimenopause or you've, hit your menopause or whatever the case may be, your body, is storing fat.
Yes.
Differently than you did in your 20s.
In different places.
Right. In different places and in different ways. Yes, it is. And that's just facts. I mean, that's just scientific facts. And so I think what a lot of us fall into the trap of is trying to do things that we did 20, 30 years ago that just aren't going to work for our bodies now. And so I think your approach of really keeping it tailored to the person and looking at what their goals are, whatever their goals might be, is super important. And that's why I always, kind of cringe when people are like, well, I looked on the internet and I found this, thing or this pill or this, whatever it is. And it's like, well, that might work for you. It may not,
Right.
And of course, before anyone starts any kind of plan, they should talk to their medical provider.
For sure.
And if you feel like you need to get some baseline blood work, or you feel like you need to have an exam first, definitely do those things too, because you want to make sure that you're working in tandem with any, other, whether you have any chronic illnesses or other
That's right.
physical situations going on that are going to be healthy, so that if you do work with a health coach or you do embark on a journey, you're doing it in a really healthy way for yourself. So,
and I wanted just to piggyback off of what you said about how things do not work the same as when we were in our 30s or for sure 20s.
Definitely.
And one of the biggest things that I see with women in their 40s and 50s is they're not eating enough. And that just tells your body to hold on to everything it's got. So that's why working out more and eating less is not the combo for your 40s and your 50s.
Nope.
Yeah, you've got to get the nutrition in.
Right. And I think because of the years that's been kind of pounded into our brains, that's the go-to for so many people.
Yep.
I'm going to eat less or, do this and work out like crazy, and I'm going to see all these results. And I think what women in our age group tend to not see results, and they get frustrated.
Right.
And not realizing that your body is different now, and working with your new body and makeup is going to get you the results you want. Whatever those results are, in a lot healthier way than trying to revert back to, the early days. So
on.
I love that. I love reminding people of that. And sometimes it's hard to hear, but we need to hear it sometimes.
Yeah. And some people don't believe it until they try it.
Yeah. And then they wonder, why am I not getting results? And it feels like it's such a frustrating experience.
Yes.
And this shouldn't be frustrating. It should be good habits for a lifetime, And I think that's a big thing I really struggled with was, this can't just be a temporary thing. I can't just do it for a little while and then go back to the way I was. I need to incorporate my habits for the rest of my life. And I will not only feel better and look better and all the benefits, but it's the right thing to do. And again, that's not kind of how we were brought up, over the years. It was do this for this little bit, work out really, really hard, and then you can just go back to being
magic life.
Yeah, right. And voila, you're transformed.
Right.
It's like, no, you really have to integrate things for a lifetime. You can't go back, to the way that you were. So we were talking also too a little bit about this time of year. We're actually recording in May, and it is the season of graduations, weddings, events. Things are happening. We all have busy, packed schedules. And one of the things I know used to trip me up all the time especially with my nutrition, was when I'd been, doing really well, getting my grams of protein in and tracking doing a great job and staying on the plan that I had for myself. And then there's a wedding or a graduation party. Don't know what the menu is going to be. What do I do? How do I prepare myself? Or, we're going out to eat with the family. It's somebody's birthday. When you have clients come to you with things like that, or when you're working with a client and they're like, oh my gosh, my daughter's getting married, or I'm going to my niece's wedding, or whatever the thing is, how do you coach somebody on how to work with those ebbs and flows of life and things that might, but potentially derail them if they're not prepared?
Yes. So first of all, the first thing that I always say is enjoy it. There will be hopefully one wedding, this one graduation, this 10th birthday. So enjoy it. That should be number one. And one of my little mottos that I say is memories over macros.
Oh yeah. I love that. You need to put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, really. We should. However, there are some ways that you can, of course, prepare, because you never, especially if you've been really making progress, you don't want to completely derail. A couple of things that I always recommend, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but choose protein first. Like if you're looking at the whatever's on the menu or the buffet, yes. Right. Choose protein first, because no matter what, protein is going to help it's going to satiate you for sure. Right. And it's going to kind of blunt like any sugar spikes, if you then choose to have something else. And, one thing I do, just like say vacation, for example.
Yes.
Is, am I going to have a dessert or a drink?
Right.
Not both. Am I going to choose the bread or the dessert? Not both. Yeah. So, you just make your choices, right, and make the best choices you can. Again, go for whole foods if that's possible. Sometimes I even tell people, maybe you want to have a healthy snack before you go, because then you're not going to look at all this stuff. You're going to be starving. And that's when the bad stuff happens. Right. Let's be real.
That's when it can get real easy to make some choices we would like to take back with our nutrition. For sure. Been there, done that many times.
Same.
Went off the rails. Yep. No, I have done that before. I like that. And I've even, when we've been on vacations, different things where I was able to take some prepackaged or some things with me. I did that as well, just because then I knew I always had something that I could have that I enjoyed, that would keep me full and satisfied, and not, I wouldn't make a choice that I didn't want to make. And so that's great advice. I think, there's that saying, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. Right. Right. And I think when it comes to nutrition, again, doesn't matter what your goals are. If you don't have a little bit of a plan with nutrition, whether it's an event, a vacation, something like that, it can really be easy to go, kind of down a path you don't want to. But also to your point, enjoying it is so important as well. And I don't want that to get lost here, because the memories over macros, I love that. I really like that. I know. I should tattoo that on my arm.
Or on your, right here, so you can see it all the time.
Yes. Definitely. Because again, I think we can get so caught up in, oh, I can't have this, I can't have that. Like, no, I'm, gonna enjoy this, and I'm gonna, like you said, choose the dessert over the bread, or the bread over the dessert, or whatever. Yes. And again, because it's life, right?
It is life. And, and that's the thing is, if you're going to do it, enjoy it.
Right.
Don't do it and then have all this guilt around it. And then you're just going to feel bad. And, and then that's when it spirals.
Right.
So if you can say, you know what, I am going to have that piece of cake and I'm going to love every single bite of it.
Yep.
Do that.
Right. And exactly. Don't guilt yourself for it, or don't sabotage the rest of the day. That was something I used to do all the time.
It's over.
Well, I blew it for today. I might as well just go crazy and eat half the pantry. And no, you don't need to do that. That is not the mindset you need to get into. And that just takes a lot of practice and preparation as well. We talked, we really didn't talk about this, but I would like to ask you about this. Because again, this was something that I know a lot of people struggle with. We've talked about some great suggestions for nutrition, some really simple, straightforward things for nutrition. And we talked about preparation, the dreaded meal prep, meal planning. Some people listening right now are probably going, oh, if I hear that one more time. But I have to say, again, from personal experience, that the more I'm prepared, whether again, it's for a vacation or an unexpected event or whatever, when I'm prepared with a meal plan, and I just usually plan out like a week. I don't really go out too much further than that. I can't really go out too much more than that. But in terms of meal preparation, planning, are there any things that you kind of constantly encourage your clients to do, things to think about, anything that, might help them, again, to just be prepared for the week? Is it simple things like preparing, some lunches ahead of time, or like, what do you kind of coach people on for that?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I absolutely, I food prep. I personally don't meal prep.
Okay.
Because I'm really good at, because I've done this for years, I can open up my fridge and make something out of anything.
Right.
That being said, though, I have to prep my veggies every week. So I'll roast a big pan of vegetables, like on a Sunday, cut all my vegetables up, get everything all ready. I'll roast like a couple of chicken breasts so that I have those ready. So I have, I'll make a big batch of quinoa so I can throw that, greens. I've got all of the things ready.
Okay.
And then I know that I can make anything out of that. Now, if that's not your forte, then I really do recommend, meal planning so that because you're prepared, just like what you said.
Right.
And a lot of my clients, that do track macros, I'll have them at least prepare the meal plan the day before, because then where you're at. You don't have to think, and everybody works, you're busy, you've got kids, you're running, blah, blah, blah. You've got that day planned. You know what you're going to do. Yeah. So even if it's just one day,
That's huge. Yeah. And again, it's that preparation. But I do like the concept of the food prep, because I do this sometimes. Like, I'll think tomorrow I want to have this, and then I get to tomorrow and I'm like, that doesn't even sound good. But if I knew I had components of things that I could mix and match.
Yes.
And anymore, like, I am not a great cook. I don't like chopping a bunch of stuff, but anymore you can buy veggies to steam in a bag, cauliflower, broccoli, whatever, veggies are your favorite. And there's a lot of people that do love that and love to do the chopping and the prepping, and that's fantastic, but I'm lazy. So I like to just throw a bag of steamed veggies, and a lot of those are portioned out. Like, there's some that have all the nutrition information. They're even kind of portioned out, so you know exactly what you're getting.
Yes.
In those. Because everybody's so gosh darn busy with so much going on. And if you make it too difficult, it's so easy again to make a different choice and fall off the plan. Yeah. If you make it too difficult. And so I love the idea of the food prep, because it takes the pressure off of the specific meal situation, and puts it into more of, okay, I have all these components for a salad, or just some chicken and veggies, or whatever. That might look like, and gives you a lot more flexibility too.
Yes, because I'm like you. I feel what I want. So if I have made something and I don't want that, then I'm just forget it. Right. So I just have to have the components, and then have some staples in your pantry. You know, do have cans of tuna or sardines or, you know, things that you can go to, bags of lentils or rice or, you know, those 90-minute bags that you can throw in the microwave. There's no shame in that. The thing I find that tricks up a lot of people is making it too complex. Like keep it simple.
Right.
You don't have to do these gourmet meals. Keep it simple.
Right. Tell me if this, I don't know if this is wrong or not to do, but when I was in my journey of wanting to lose some weight, I ate the same thing almost every single day. I mean, there was some variance in it, but I definitely for breakfast and lunch, this is boring for those of us who, you know, love food and love to eat. It seems boring to do, but that really helped me a lot as someone who was really new to the whole tracking thing and doing that. And it really helped me a lot. It took a lot of the guesswork out. I always had what I wanted on hand. Now, I would say I did that probably Monday through Friday, breakfast and lunch. And then maybe on the weekend, I might change it up a little bit, but I kind of ate the same thing every day. And again, not super exciting, but food isn't, supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to nourish our bodies and give us fuel for working out and living and whatnot. And so that really helped me a lot.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like people who are just starting this journey, that is super simple. Keep it simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we do tend to make things really hard and complex on ourselves. And that's not what you need, especially if this is a new thing for you, or something you maybe have been away from for a while, to start small and and I also tell people too, those small steps are going to lead to big change. And so if you can even say, okay, I'm going to just focus on breakfast this week. I'm going to focus on some really high protein, healthy breakfast items for myself. And I'm going to try with that. And then maybe if I can kind of get that locked in, maybe next week I'll tackle lunch and just, kind of start small. Or maybe it's just, I'm just going to not change anything about how I'm eating yet, but I just want to track my macros
just to see where you're at.
Right. Because like you said, I think people really underestimate. They think, oh, I can't do this, or I'm eating enough, or you're really not, you know? And so I think even getting that baseline of the habit, even of seeing where you're at is a great step in the right direction.
That is
to start off. So
yeah. And I ask that too, depending on which route, my clients want to go. I have a couple of, options for health coaching, but, if they've never done that before, I kind of want to see where they at. What are you eating? And then it lets them see what they're eating.
Right. I think it's a nice reality check. And it can be very illuminating to like, oh wow, okay, now I see why I'm not, hitting the goals I have or making progress because I'm doing this, or I'm not doing what I should be doing, or whatever the case may be. And it's just a good way to get a handle on that so you can move forward and make the progress you want to make in a really healthy way. That's a lifetime of change. Is there anything else around nutrition that you would want to share today? You're just such a wealth of knowledge. I could talk to you about this all day long.
I know, we'd be here all day.
Yeah, we have other things to do.
Yes.
But is there anything else that you'd want to share? Any encouragement that you have for people that might be just kind of starting out?
Yeah. The other thing I just wanted to touch on is, because I get this a lot, is I have a family. How do I do this when I have a family and, whatever. And I am at the stage of my life where it's just my husband and I. Yeah. And we don't eat the same.
Sure.
Now, I keep it like we will both, for example, last night I made buffalo chicken burgers, and we both had that.
Yum.
But then he has a bun. I don't necessarily have a bun.
No.
He wanted red potatoes. I like a sweet potato. I wanted asparagus, so we
can customize a little bit.
The main thing is usually the same.
Right.
And so again, it doesn't need to be, where he loves pasta. I don't really like pasta. So I'll do spiralized zucchini or something like that, but we'll make the same dinner.
Right.
But just components can be different.
Yes.
Or they can be less. Because again, if you're eating real food, nothing is off limits. Really, nothing should be off limits.
Right.
So it's just, keeping it simple. I'll just go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
The whole
That
thing
is-
can be simple.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that point up, because I do, I experienced that too, when I was, working on my health goals. And I think a lot of people, that is very common. You have a house full of kids, busy, teenagers, and a partner, and, it's like, I'm not going to make multiple different dinners. I was not interested in doing that.
No.
So how can I keep myself on track with where I want to go, but still providing a meal for, my family that they'll eat.
Yes.
And I love the idea of different components being different, instead of saying, well, I have my thing over here, you're all eating this. And if that's what people do and it works for them, go for it. I was not interested in that, because I just did not want to be in the kitchen for hours cooking. Again, it's not my favorite thing to do. So I really tried to keep it consistent. And if you have a partner who's willing to roll with it and go with it, hey, that's awesome,
Right.
and I love that. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I can imagine that's a very common concern or question that people have as they're embarking on these new pathways. So, well, Stephanie, I just appreciate you so much for coming on again. I think we could talk all day. We're not going to do that, but I will put links in the show notes for people so that they can connect with you if they have questions, they want to learn more about your programs, just to get a kickstart. If you're someone who's been away from this for a while, life gets busy. I think sometimes, especially as women, our own health and well-being, we put that on the back burner. Yeah. We just prioritize so many things above ourselves. And so I think it's time to take care of yourself and focus on yourself. And working with you would be a great way to kickstart that and get that going. So thanks again for being on the podcast. Yes, it was so much fun.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please follow the show to make sure the latest episode is on your podcast feed each week. I would greatly appreciate a rating and a 5-star review on the podcast platform you're listening on. It helps others to find the show. If there are topics you'd like me to discuss on the show, please email me at themarvelousmiddleagepodcast@gmail.com or direct message me on Instagram @Nicole Stute. Thank you for listening.